Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can I too please pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land and to their elders past and present and the Gadigal people. Thank you, Rosemary, and it's been a pleasure to join you at numerous COAG Energy Council meetings as we try to progress some important reforms in what is a very vexed and difficult area of responsibility, and particularly at the moment when we're dealing with problems not just on a state-by-state basis but also on a national basis. I thought this morning I'd quickly touch on how reform of Australia's energy market has fared to date, the challenges that have arisen and where we need to do better for consumers, and the action the Australian government is taking to address these challenges. Given what's happened in recent weeks, I don't have to tell you that the energy market is undergoing significant change, driven by a range of factors, including technology, changing demand, and changing consumer preferences. We are moving from a system with large remote-based coal generators providing the bulk of our power to a more dynamic system and energy mix with renewable energy sources, particularly wind and solar PV, now a significant source of electricity. In 2016, around 5% of Australia's national electricity generation came from wind, and over 2% was from solar. But the proportion varies significantly by region. In South Australia, 41% of electricity generation came from wind and solar last year, and this transition provides new opportunities and as well as challenges. A number of extraordinary events over the past year have demonstrated the magnitude of these challenges. Just over a year ago, the Basslink cable between mainland and Tasmania went down and stayed down for 6 months. At the time, Tasmania was relying on imported power due to low dam levels and had to take emergency action to ensure people had power while industry had to curtail operations. In mid-2016, we saw wholesale prices spike to extraordinary levels in South Australia. Again, a key piece of infrastructure was down, in this case, the Hayward Interconnector for scheduled maintenance. It also coincided with cold temperatures, calm weather, and high gas prices. The wholesale electricity price of electricity hit around $14,000 per megawatt hour. Compare that to an average wholesale electricity price of only $50 per megawatt hour in the eastern states. A few months later, South Australia went black, and it was the first state-wide outage in the history of the NEM. We saw gridlock on our roads, and 1.7 million people went without power. And again this month we saw 90,000 customers, households and businesses go without power. The issues plaguing South Australia are a timely wake-up call for us all, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that the transition to a lower emissions economy does not involve compromising the reliability, the affordability and the safety of our system. While the sector grapples with these technological and system challenges, it would be a mistake to think that consumers don't have a role to play. They are now at the centre of the challenges. They rightly expect reliable and secure energy, and they want options for lowering their household power bills. The consumer experience is being shaped by two major shifts in the market. The first is the extraordinary growth in the range of options available to consumers, including distributed generation, for example, rooftop solar. Consumers are no longer destined to be passive participants in the market. Rather, they can and are actively participating. The second is the increase in energy costs, which we've seen in recent times, with only an all too brief respite thanks to the repeal of the carbon tax. But while energy costs have risen, it is important to note that so too has the scope for consumers to more actively manage their energy use and to keep their total energy bills down. Importantly, we are seeing many consumers taking advantage of the transition, seeking out energy options that best suit their needs and circumstances and minimise their costs. This could be as simple as changing their retail plan, or might involve them investing in solar PV, storage, or energy productivity measures. But research by the Australian Energy Market Commission has found that many consumers are not engaging with the market. In fact, some consumers are foregoing annual savings of $270 by not doing so. Why is that? This can also equally apply to other energy choices. Consumer research, like the ECA's recent Consumer Sentiment Survey, gives us a glimpse of what consumers really care about. And not surprisingly, affordability and reliability are right up there near the top of the list. On average, half the consumers in competitive markets have never changed supplier, excepting Victoria. Over 50% of customers do not feel that they currently get value for money from their electricity retailer, even though more than 70% are satisfied with the reliability of their supply. And few consumers think the market will not provide better value for money in the next 5 years. Other ECA research shows consumers are interested in new technologies to control their bills and reduce their dependence on the grid. And almost all consumers with solar, a whopping 92%, said that they installed solar to reduce their energy bills, and more than 3/4 of them said they installed solar to become less dependent on the grid. Understanding what drives consumers really does matter. The Energy Networks Association Transformation Roadmap shows that we can effectively transition to a market where proactive consumers are encouraged to use their investment in storage and solar PV to support more efficient network outcomes, in which case everybody does benefit. Clearly, empowering choice is important, but the question has to be asked, what should be done? It won't probably surprise you to hear that my view is that regulation should not be the first answer, particularly considering the strong safety net that we already have in place. But we need to ensure that market settings provide consumers with the right price signals and that they allow consumer choice, and that barriers faced by consumers are addressed, and that consumers have easy access to the right information to make the best possible choices for them. Collaboration will be absolutely critical if we are to remove barriers to consumer access to data and achieve the rollout, and the effective rollout, I should say, of cost-reflective pricing. Industry should be able to address these issues without the heavy hand of government coming into play. All consumers, industry, and households alike need to be confident that they are paying no more than necessary for their energy, which is safe, reliable, and secure. We are already taking steps as a government, including maintaining energy security with the assistance of the Chief Scientist and the Finkel Review, which is now well underway. We are putting downward pressure on prices by reforming gas markets and network regulation. And we're helping to unlock consumer choice through the ongoing market reforms and through progressing the government's National Energy Productivity Plan. In terms of the Finkel Review, as you know, in the immediate aftermath of the South Australian blackout, I convened an emergency meeting of the COAG Energy Ministers. With my state and territory colleagues, we commissioned the independent review into the market that is chaired by Alan Finkel. You will hear more about this process tomorrow from one of our expert panellists, Chloe Munro. But I would note that the preliminary report highlights the important role consumers have in driving change and the need to ensure that we get the incentives right. Ministers are already taking steps on the back of the preliminary report released in December and are accelerating consideration of important proof of concept projects to demonstrate the viability of technologies like large-scale storage. In addition, ARENA and the Clean Energy Finance Corporation recently announced a new $20 million funding round for large-scale storage and other flexible capacity projects, including pumped hydro, following a direct request from the Prime Minister. A key challenge for policymakers off the back of this report will be making sure the entry of new technologies into the grid in coming years is carefully managed to deliver reliable and affordable energy and support the system's security. In terms of gas market reforms and the limited merits review regime, these have also been important priorities for the COAG Energy Council. At our most recent meeting in December, Ministers agreed a package of reforms that will lower gas transport costs by mandating greater disclosure and transparency for gas pipeline services and pricing. We've also agreed to introduce mandatory commercial arbitration in the regulated gas pipeline sector. These are important reforms because they'll put downward pressure on gas prices, which have been all too high, noting that transportation makes up to 15% of the price of gas. It would be difficult, if not impossible, to keep electricity prices down without controlling network costs, which make up around half of the typical household electricity bill. The COAG Energy Council has also agreed to a series of reforms that will significantly constrain the ability of regulated electricity and network businesses to seek higher revenues through the limited merits review regime and place a greater focus on the interests of consumers. These reforms, which were discussed in a teleconference just last Friday, will be finalised very, very shortly. In terms of the energy market transformation, as you know, consumers are voting with their feet. Building on the more than 1.6 million households with solar PV, the uptake of battery storage is also increasing dramatically. At least 6,750 battery storage systems were installed last year, up from around 500 in 2015. And some are predicting that this year the figure will triple to more than 20,000 new installations. That is why the COAG Energy Council, through its Energy Market Transformation Work Program, is ensuring consumer protections are available to customers when they invest in behind-the-meter technologies. We want those protections to be sufficient for their purposes. We're also considering what are the appropriate standards for distributed battery storage. We're trying to ensure arrangements support competition in new products and services that provide support services to network businesses. And we're exploring how network regulation might need to change as customers adopt more distributed energy resources. Importantly, 2017 will also see the start of important reforms to network prices and metering. The cost-reflective signals these reforms provide will help guide efficient investments in new technologies and should lead to the development of new innovative tariffs and other products and services for consumers to choose from. In terms of the National Energy Productivity Plan, this is a key feature of our government strategy to boost productivity in the electricity market, but also to drive down a carbon footprint. The NEP is a framework agreed by the COAG Energy Council to improve Australia's productivity by 40% by 2030. And I'm pleased to say that the NEP is actually on track. By improving our energy productivity, the NEP will help consumers manage their energy bills, reduce Australia's greenhouse emissions, and support economic growth. To date, the Australian Government has committed around $10 million to support the NEP, including a $2 million grant to the Energy Consumers Australia to lead research on consumer decision-making. This 3-year research project, called PowerShift, should guide the development of tools to help consumers manage their energy bills and make energy choices easier, particularly for vulnerable consumers. In conclusion, I want to ensure you that the government is committed to a national reform agenda that prioritises energy security and affordability. These are factors that consumers care about. The Finkel Review and the review of climate change policies, which is also occurring this year, will set a clear long-term strategy for ensuring that we transition to a lower emissions economy, and that we're only paying as much as we need to for safe, reliable and secure energy supply. These are all very difficult issues. There are no silver bullets, but I know working together with the states, the Commonwealth, the territories and Consumers Australia, we will make progress going forward. Thank you very much.